Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode on Sharmila Talkies. Today, I will be talking to Piyush Kumar, who's working as a chief architect at Capillary Technologies. He's done his electrical engineering at IIT in Kharagpur, and then he did his BSc in economics at London School of Economics. And he's been working as an architect for almost more than a decade here. He started in 2002, worked as a developer, and then moved up the ladder and currently working as a chief architect. Today, we will talk to him about the what does it take to continue working as an architect and what are the pros and cons of an architect. Stay tuned and very good morning.
Good morning, Jamila.
So, Piyush, you know how this kind of works. This is a conversation that I have with people in the IT world who are in different positions where, as leaders, over the years that they've achieved, especially around 15 to 20 years of experience, right? And we've had the connect during the New Relic conference that we've had. So to begin with, Piyush, looking at your LinkedIn profile, right? It does say that you're currently working as a chief architect at Capillary Technologies. And if you look at your educational background, you did your engineering at IIT Kharagpur, right? And then you moved to studying the London School of Economics in BSc. So why that switch from engineering and IIT to economics, right? Maybe we could get started from there and then move on.
Yeah, it wasn't really a switch. And things around mathematics and science have been a passion for since school time.
Okay.
So, uh, engineering was a natural progression on that. Obviously, back in those days when I was studying in school, engineering and IITs used to be a very prominent career direction. And hence I took that, continued through that, and have continued through that background all along.
Yeah.
But somewhere after passing out from college, over the next few years, I got a bit interested in reading about economics, learning about economics. I used to read certain articles, journals, and then got introduced to this course through some friends.
Oh, okay.
And then, so this was a full-fledged 3-year graduation course in economics that you do as an external study program.
Oh, okay.
So I did this alongside my work as an external study program.
Oh, okay.
And it has the flexibility that you can do it at the pace that you want and so on. It still wants you to complete all of the 12 courses. I finished it over a period of 4 years, but it helped me learn a lot of nuances, basics, and have kept pace with just haven't worked on any aspect in economics specifically, but I've kept learning things in that space. I basically subscribe to a few journals around a few papers that different reserve banks, etc., put out. So it was purely born out of interest, and through that study, I have just increased that interest and continued that. It is not it's not related to my work at all. It's a parallel passion that I carry.
Nice. Great, Piyush. It's very different because I've known people who kind of continue in the same line of work, right? Or it's a different hobby by itself, which is so unrelated to education, right? You having that innate passion for it, where you've done your engineering in IIT and then continue economics, you'll also see even to this day you subscribe to journals and you're up to date of in the economics side of it. I mean, that's pretty interesting, and I think it's pretty rare as much as I've known, right? It's so much of a world of difference between engineering and economics, and since you're not at all anywhere closely related to work in the economics is nowhere closely related to anything at work that you're doing, but you're still so much up to date. That shows how much of passion you still have for it. Right. Great.
A lot of world events since the time I started studying this have had a lot of correlation. So you could see through a lot of things that have been going on since around the 2007-8 time when the subprime crisis happened. So yeah.
Okay, so you kind of related to the IT sector as well. Okay, that's a great correlation. Okay, I think it kind of helps you analyze better, right? And I think that's one of the greatest uh, I don't know, what do you say, requirement of an architect, I think, right? Right. Okay, cool. So as you've started as a developer and you've been doing various roles of an architect, where currently you are now the chief architect, right? So in this fast-paced IT world where things change like in a week's time, there's some new technology and so on and so forth, right? And in any company, in an IT corporate company, right, the architect is the go-to person when it comes to the latest technology. So how do you kind of keep yourself up to date to ensure that everything in your company, which is kind of partially or mostly your responsibility to ensure your applications and whatever products are latest in the market, how do you kind of keep up to it in this fast-paced changing technology?
Yeah. So one of the things is that, and like you said, right, you need to be aware of what technologies are coming up, what trends are coming up, what new techniques are being used.
Yeah.
Uh, so subscribing to certain, let's say, blogs, certain write-ups, um, is one way through which you basically keep abreast of what people are doing, what people are talking about, and then what new technologies, etc., are coming in. In addition, a couple of other things that help is that so I also continuously read books.
Great.
Keep alternating between technology books and otherwise, but the technology books, they give you a more structured viewpoint around certain things. So it helps build. So blogs are more short-lived. You have to explore and figure out more in that. Books give you a more structured viewpoint around a topic in a more elaborate way.
Yeah.
Some of the other things, though, is that, see, so the newer technologies keep coming in, and they will continue to be in there. I mean, as architects, you have to. So there are things that fascinate you, you get excited about, but at the same time, you also have to keep looking at as to what would you put in a trial mode, what would you put in a in just a watch mode, and so on. Also, trying to understand everything in depth at every time doesn't really work. So what works there is that whatever you would have learned in the past, if you dig deeper at that point of time and understand things in more details, in more fundamental ways around how certain things work, then there are newer technologies that come, newer frameworks that come in, and so on. You can correlate and see how some of these things used to work versus how does something else work, and so on. I mean, taking an example, if back in the days, if you knew how a Rails framework works, it works basis a lot of conventions over something like a Spring, which used to work heavily based on configurations. So I mean, today a React framework is super popular in the front end technologies. The nuances vary, but they very heavily rely on conventions and how you basically would do certain things in there, and so on. So philosophy wise, right, you see a lot of continuation of philosophies across technologies that keep coming in, and understanding those underlying philosophies, the underlying principles under the hoods, what they are doing, they help you uh, understand what's in there in the new one quicker and faster.
Okay. So basically going ahead and making sure the base that you have is more stronger and stronger than just switching different areas, right? So you'll be able to relate to what you know in the past, your experience and your learnings, to what is the newer one, and continue to build on that and make it more efficient. Okay. And this you do by continuously reading books, and you also kind of evaluate what can be done and what is just like a good to know kind of stuff. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. So Piyush, this is not an easy thing, right? Being an architect, most of the companies are doing the role of an architect. You are an individual contributor, right? But the onus lies on you. You kind of accountable to ensure the stability of the product, the efficiency of the product, right? Everybody or all the teams kind of approach you, whether it's the engineering team, it's the development teams, various different teams that are involved in making a product. So, but you don't have a hold on saying this is how it needs to be done, because you don't manage those teams or those people, but you are accountable end of the day, in terms of business for the company, to ensure that the product goes out as expected from both its efficient requirement from the business perspective and also from the customer's perspective. How do you kind of manage and play this role, given that you've been doing this for so many years? It's a dicey situation, according to me, where you don't have you don't have control is not the right word. They don't report to you, and you're not managing the various teams, but you're accountable for the output they are going to give, right? So how do you kind of do this?
See, I think, I mean, if you look at it, right, everybody is interested in solving problems.
Yeah.
And whoever is working on is working on solving problems, is working on trying to find efficient ways of solving them, and trying to do it in a more in a robust way, in something that works well, scales well. Everyone takes pride in doing these kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
So as an architect, uh, if you help in that process, and that typically is what architects do, right from the time that you are trying to define the problem, to when you are looking at what are the different ways in which you could solve it, what technologies could you use. Whoever is the stakeholder that you are typically working with, right? If you are continuously adding value in the system, if you are basically bringing out the right data points, being able to explain them very well, and some of the skills that are very, very important for architects is their ability to explain well, imagine things like artists do, be able to draw, be able to put it out in ways in which people can relate to it and understand it in a more simpler way, understand it well, be very analytical and bring out data, and try and drive those decisions through data. And generally, in my experience, what I have seen is this across the board, with different people, different stakeholders. It more is about how you are able to explain things, how well you are able to convey the thoughts, how well are you able to put the details and the logic on the table. And if you are able to add substantial value to the system, in that case, you don't need the authority.
Okay, great.
Because, I mean, you understand, right, that sometimes the authority could go the other way around as well. That it becomes forceful for people to do these things, right? I mean, I take a small example, that if as an architect you are able to analyze a particular application for its performance and figure out that there are these three things that are problematic here for these reasons, and if these three things are fixed, then these two or three problems from a performance perspective will go away for this application. For the team that is working on that, their lives get better. The amount of bugs, alerts that they basically get hit with, their efficiencies get better. So if you are able to add value in the system, you wouldn't need the authority to do this, and hence back things by data. And in terms of explaining, try and use as much visuals, easier ways of explaining things that you could use. Learn to be a storyteller in some way.
Yeah, okay. Great. I think that's a very strong point that you hit on, Piyush, where I think backing up with data points of what you're suggesting and why you're suggesting, that kind of plays a more bigger role. Right. This I can kind of totally relate to, because if somebody comes ahead and says, okay, we are implementing these changes, or these are new enhancements, right? You always say, hey, it's actually working fine as expected. We're doing well. So why make any changes? And probably if it does not go well, we're only making it more messy. Right. Yeah. So I think that great data point, your point of saying whatever you suggest, add it with data points. And I think another important factor is explaining it with ease, right? So that any person can understand, and it does not look like, oh my God, I'm launching a rocket kind of thing, right? Yeah, I think the one more strong thing that you actually emphasize is, basically create make it like a storytelling and have visuals to it so people can relate. I think more than that we've all known, right? A diagram or a picture stays in anybody's head than 1 hour of, probably audio that they've been listening to. So
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
okay. This shows how and why you've been there in the industry for so long and continue as an architect growing there. I think these are your secret points, if I could call them, right? Oh,
Enjoyed it all along, Sharmila. I mean, this has been probably the third company that I'm doing it at now, probably more than 10, 12 years in the architect role.
well, yeah.
And I have thoroughly enjoyed every bit of it.
Yeah, I can see that through your LinkedIn profile that you've been an architect throughout. Because I've worked with people in the past where they are working as a principal engineer and they have this option of the next level of their career. It's like going towards management side or the architect side. I've known of people taking the architect role and saying, "Oh my God, it's so difficult to convince people about something because." And then taking a step back or getting back into it's okay, I'm happy with the principal engineer's role and I don't want to get in the architect role because you're more accountable for the deliverables when you get in the architect role. And manager again has its own pros and cons. We all get there. So this actually I think kind of talks about your key strengths in this role. And thank you so much for sharing that. Right. So in continuity to the previous question or what you just said, right? You kind of really explained it so well why you don't need to have authority as a manager. Being an IC, you still can go ahead and explain to the teams the need of what you're suggesting and why they need to implement it. So what do you think is a boon for an architect? Because you're like the man or the person who's making things happen for the company in terms of business or the application. Or what do you think is also curse is not a great word, a not so good thing in the role of an architect when it's both good and bad, right? Sometimes things kick off like you expected, it goes beyond 100%. There are odd times that it does not go well as expected. So what are the pros and cons of this role?
See, the pros is that as architects, you can basically make lasting impact and very deep impact on the systems and products that you work with. Impacts that would basically last a good amount of time. Impact that would have cross-cutting benefits and across various use cases. I mean, I'll just take an example that late last year, early this year, a few architects in my team got started on looking at certain performance aspects of our products, and they dig deeper and deeper, figured out a lot of data and metrics around it to nail down where the problems were, and the kind of improvements that they could bring into the system have been about 4x to 5x improvement in the response times and on the error rates in those 4 or 5 months period. And purely from a customer experience perspective, the product has moved multiple notches in terms of the experience that the customers are getting. And as a result, what you would see is that our customer success team has a lot less things to worry about in terms of complaints from customer on this. And we have not heard anything around this in last 8-9 months from customers where they have come and complained about this. So that has made our customer success team's lives better. It gives us a lot more competitive edge when our sales teams, pre-sales teams go out and look out for newer prospects and customers, because these numbers are way better than a lot of other competitors in the market. And I mean, we have not heard any concerns around this from anybody. So I'm saying that apart from what you are able to do, you are seeing more wide-ranging impact of these kinds of changes across the board, right? And I'll take another example that on some of the other aspects, one of the architectural changes that were done again earlier this year has brought down cost on one of our very heavy duty processing processes by about 70%.
Oh my,
So,
that's a huge
so some
number.
of these changes are giving us a lot of room to basically work with various use cases, be able to go and work with much larger size of customers and so on. So where I was trying to get to is that as an architect, you could really do things which would have very lasting impact,
Yeah,
um, you and more cross-cutting impact.
yeah.
Um, in terms of a thing not so good, right? See, it's a as an architect, a lot of time you are in an experimentation stage.
Mhm, mhm,
So you are doing things, you are trying things out, and there are quite a few things that will not work out. You
mhm,
will you will start with an hypothesis. Sometimes you get false hopes. You keep digging in, and after spending a few months of effort, you will realize that this is something that is not yielding the desired results.
mhm,
Sometimes your experiments fool you if you don't design them well, if you don't assess them well, and
mhm,
then you decide to go the whole hog. You go there, and then you realize that you don't get the benefits. So a lot of times it happens that you put in the effort, but you don't see the results.
mhm,
That's
mhm,
part of the job. That's part of the profile. uh, I mean, I see this as mechanisms through which you keep learning, and rather than getting disappointed, understand that one, the experiments and their outcomes need to be designed well. But then whatever you do, you will have situations where you will put in the effort and you will find out that this is something that doesn't work. And a lot of times uh, you have to take that and continue with it and not get too disappointed about it. I mean, I've seen architects getting disappointed saying that we put in this effort, but then we won't go ahead with this. It won't yield the results. So yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was a perfect example, Piyush, right? It's not just about the success as well. Definitely, you're making a great impact, in terms of uh, business, definitely, yes. And also how you touched upon how you're making lives easy for the customer success teams. And a big thing, big win would be for the sales pitches that the teams are doing for customers. And definitely for the users who are using your products, right? But on the other hand, the area where you just mentioned, you do put equal amount of effort on any experimenting any new product as well, because you really don't know how successful it could be or it may not be, but not losing that enthusiasm and that zest, right, for continuing to go ahead and start again from scratch when you put like probably you've done like 95% of the things, and then for whatever reasons, right, it could be revenue or suddenly there's a change of business plan or whatever that is, or they say, okay, no, this is really whatever things are, to let it go. I can totally relate when you actually told that a few of the architects in your team are like, oh my god, what happened, right? Because you put in so much of hard work, you do your analysis, you do your so much of homework and all of that stuff. But I think the thing, like what you mentioned, not get greatly disappointed with it, but move on saying, okay, this happened, but there are various other things that we've achieved, and move on with that zeal. So great. I'm sure you must have seen quite a few things like this in your career, and that's why you're kind of talking about it. So yeah, I think it does require, because I don't think from an architect level anybody else is going to push you saying do or not do. It's you got to push yourselves and kind of get that done, right? So I think personally, I think it's like it's going to be a self motivation thing when things don't go the way you expected, right? Okay,
Yeah.
great, Piyush. That was a great explanation. Thank you so much for that. So I know we can kind of in a couple of minutes or so. So having done so much in the IT world, in the role of an architect itself that you've done, right? What are your two cents for the audience who's like watching this about how do they go about their career growth? I think a couple of factors that I can add on before you start off is, reading books and blogs that you sign up to and keeping up to pace on technology, right? And explaining things in a very simple manner that everybody can understand and relate to as such. So beyond that, what more do you think are two cents that people can pick up from this talk show?
I think three aspects I'll call out. One is
Sure.
that keep learning continuously. This
Mhm.
is something that I learned back in uh, my early days, and I learned it from someone that don't close your day until you have learned a new thing that day.
Wow. Okay.
It
That's a
could be at work, it could be about the code that you are writing, it could be about the product that you are building, it could be about anything, but learn a small thing every day. So that compounding thing has really helped me, and I would advise that to everybody that keep learning every single day. The power of this compounding, right? I mean, you keep reading about this here and there, you will feel it. The
yeah.
other thing that I'll say is do what interests you. Don't do what everybody else does, because you will do well in whatever interests you. Otherwise, you are going through the motions, and then I mean, it starts becoming a burden and a struggle at some point of time. So do what interests you. And the third thing I would say is basically just be audacious with what you do. Don't be hesitant to take risks. Without risks, no payoffs.
Okay, that's a very strong one, right? Cool, cool. I think that kind of explains how you kind of be continue to do what you're doing, right? Taking that risk in spite of having seen success or failures, go ahead and say, let's go ahead and do this, right? Great, great, Piyush. So it's actually keep learning. I think that's a great tagline where you just mentioned don't close your day until you learn a new thing every day, right? And it has the compounding effect is like humongous for the results that you will achieve when you learn everything, something new every day, right? Much again.
Thanks a lot, Shamila, and
Thank
thank you for having me. Looking forward to meeting sometime again in